We get to hear next from Tzveta and Seema. You're here, right?
Yes. Hello,
Tzveta,
everyone.
hello. Hi. Seema, you're here, yeah?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, excellent. So are you going to share how you met? And then I'll just mute myself. I just want to make sure that's part of your presentation.
Okay. I was actually thinking of sharing how we met in a story, but
No, do it. No.
Okay,
However you're
so,
going to do it. That's fantastic.
well, we met with Seema quite unexpectedly. I enrolled in an Italian training, like a training organized by Italian Gestalt Play Therapy Association, and Karen was the trainer. So, unfortunately, in an Italian training, everyone speaks Italian, and I only understand Italian. I was relying on the fact that Karen will speak in English. And by miracle, there appears Seema, another person in the training who doesn't speak Italian. So, in breakout rooms, Karen decided to put us together, and we had amazing experience just doing the exercises, but also talking about our interests, just sharing life stories. And Seema, would you like to go on from there?
And before you know what happened, we got talking, and where that journey took us was that Tzveta actually ran a creating how to create a therapeutic story workshop for a group of about 8 of us here in Sri Lanka. And that was really, really a fun learning experience. It was, and just the journey of, how it, it felt very serendipitous.
Actually, I was thinking of beginning my presentation about therapeutic stories with a story that we created as a group on that same story creating workshop. What we did was each one of the participants. Yes, can you hear me?
Excuse me. Either one of you has background noise. Oh, maybe it's Seema. Okay. All right, go ahead. Thank you. We want to make sure we hear you clearly. Thanks.
Okay. So usually when I work with groups, we often begin our group work by creating a story together. So now I would like to share a story with you that was created on the last meeting of the workshop Seema talked about. And in that workshop, we've combined storytelling with drawing. Because it was an online workshop, we obviously used the whiteboard. That particular story had no predefined theme, it just emerged. But as you can see, it became a metaphor of our journey. Okay,
maybe it's you. Sorry, maybe it's you, Tzveta. There is some.
Well, it could be my computer. It's noisy.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, there's no way to
deal with that. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I will just share this story, and it turns. Can you see it? Okay, so it turned into a cartoon actually. So the story goes as follows. Each of the participants had to draw something and then add a sentence or two. So, one day, the circle rolled along for a walk, and the circle came across two balls of thread lying on the ground. And as they met, the circle said, I've come a long way to meet you, but it's uphill from now on. And the two balls of thread said, do you have to go up? And how are you going to do that? To come down is easy, but how are you going to go uphill? How do you control your movement? Then suddenly, this little girl appeared and said, why do you always think it's difficult to climb up? Let's try together. I'll hold your hand. She gave them a little vehicle. That vehicle was a triangle. And they all got into the vehicle and climbed up. And they all had a little picnic. So uphill was a nice place to sit and have a picnic. Well, that was just a short demonstration of how a story just that came out of nowhere described in metaphor the whole journey of the group. It became a metaphor of our group experience, connecting with each other, sharing the perceived difficulty in story creating, and then finding unexpected solutions and experiments, and the final success and relief. So I would like to share with you a lot of facts about therapeutic storytelling and story creating, but since we have to make it short, I will just share with you my favorite scientifically proven fact, which every time sounds like real magic to me. And it is the fact that every story, if it is well told, actually activates areas in our brains that are activated when we experience something in reality. So when we listen to a story, we are not only listening to it, we are living it, we are experiencing it. And then the whole brain gets activated and different parts in our brain work together in integration. Like it's too simplistic to say, but we can divide the brain into left part of the brain, which is the more logical, linear, and literal one, connected with language and planning, and the right hand, the right sphere in our brain, which is connected with image and emotions and feelings. So a story and a metaphoric story acts as a bridge between those two. It helps us to link the language, the everyday language, with our feelings. It helps us to have a whole brain experience. So everything sounds great, but how would this information, how can we put this information in practice? And how can we use it in our work with children and teenagers? Now, I would like to describe the two main ways in which we can use metaphors and metaphoric stories with our clients. So, just very briefly, I will share with you what is a metaphor and especially what is a therapeutic metaphor. Metaphors are always connected with the real object in some way, but therapeutic metaphors are connected through similarity of the image and also through similarity of a relationship. In that way, they can speak also to our feelings. So one way we can use stories is if we create a story for a child's problem. Through metaphor, we can describe an experience and feelings of a child, feelings that may be too difficult or too painful for a child to, to want to look at them. But metaphor provides the distance. The child can look at their problem and examine their feelings at a safe distance. So the effective therapeutic metaphor represents the child's problem accurately enough so that the child no longer feels alone, yet indirectly enough so that the child does not feel embarrassed or ashamed. And then another great way we can use a metaphor is we can offer possible solutions. And there is a very big difference between offering a solution in direct everyday language and offering a solution through metaphor, because metaphors are not bound by strict behavior. They are more about feelings and about relationship. So when we are offering a metaphoric solution, basically we are offering an invitation to share a feeling and to decode it in whatever way you want to do it. Metaphor, I would just like to give you an example about a 4-year-old girl I was working with who was afraid of going to the toilet. And she was really afraid of the potty itself, but also of letting go. And it had become quite an emergency situation. She had to be hospitalized a couple of times. And because she just wouldn't let go. So after seeing her, I made up a story for her. And the metaphor I used was the metaphor of a little cloud who was gathering rain and was getting heavier and heavier, but was afraid to let go of the rain because the cloud was afraid that it would disappear. And I accompanied that story with a little sponge cloud, uh, and the girl could put it in a bowl of water, then squeeze it and see the water coming out. So I wouldn't share the whole story, but basically the mother said that after that the child was very intrigued and acted out the story a lot of times, and she began sitting on the potty while holding to the little cloud and explaining to the little cloud that it's okay to let go and water the flowers, and that afterwards the cloud will feel lighter and will be easier to fly again. That was just an example. This is one way we can use stories when we tell metaphoric stories to the children. But I would like to speak also about another very, very important way, and it is the opposite way. When we listen to children telling their stories in metaphors, because children unconsciously use metaphors to share their experience. And it's just that metaphors are their natural language of speaking. And with very little prompts, children would share their stories and would speak about feelings they wouldn't dare describe in everyday language. I would also like to share a couple of examples of this type of listening to metaphoric stories coming from children. Um, I use, well, basically all calendar exercises are great for storytelling coming from the child. So this actually is a little story that came from a girl, an 8-year-old girl, um, whom I was seeing because of a very painful divorce in her family. And she wouldn't say anything about it. So we did the scribbles technique. And afterwards, she found two objects in her scribble. And the upper part of a leg, of an egg actually, and a heart. And I asked her to tell me a story about an egg and a heart. So this is her story. An egg hatched and saw a heart. The egg took the heart, but thought it is fake and just a toy, and hung it above the door as a decoration. And the hens played with it, and that's it. The heart was a toy. So, well, for me, that was, um, I felt startled when she told me her story, and I I could hear the eloquence with which she spoke about her feelings through metaphor, the feelings coming from the divorce. And I, okay, we have a couple more minutes, so I would like to share another, a more, I would say, eloquent story that came from a teenage boy I was working with. And that story also had its beginning with a technique I learned here. I learned from Lynn, the faucet technique. So, uh, this is a boy who had great fear of exams. He used to study a lot, but he was so fearful. He could basically do nothing when on the actual exam. And when talking about it, uh, he was not willing to share anything. It was as if he couldn't um, even formulate it for himself. So we did the faucet technique with um, fear, anger, sadness, and joy. And those were the feelings that came out of it. So I said, well, what happens next with those feelings? And that was the beginning of his story. And his story goes, so from those feelings mixed and they created the fearful man. The man who was afraid of everything. So he said, is there anyone who can help me? And there appeared knowledge. And knowledge said, maybe I can help you, but I can't guarantee you anything. So then the fearful man said, well, is there anyone else who can help me? And there came calmness. So this is a hammock between trees. And calmness said, well, you can come to me only after you deal with your own fear. So the poor fearful man was so afraid that he added more fear to, to himself. And he said, oh, only a wizard can help me at this moment. So there appeared a wizard. And as strange as it may seem, this teenage boy told me the unconsciously used the self-nurturing technique that Violet and you have described in your books. And so in his story, there appeared the magician who said, well, I like you the way you are. You are valuable, and even though you are a fearful man, I still like you. So that's the end of, oh, that was the end of his story. And now, Seema and I, we wanted to challenge you to create your own metaphor, to try and think of a problem maybe you have, or a problem, a challenge you encounter with a client. And Seema will present you the specific steps you can take and try to see what would come out. Seema.
Yeah, that was lovely. The examples, yeah, were really enjoyable. And I just wanted to say to all the other presenters also that it was such an enjoyable session. Thank you. Okay, Karen, will you be able to put everyone in breakout? You'll put everyone in breakout rooms at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, so
we're short on time, but maybe you can think of an abbreviated. How long were you thinking, Seema?
I was thinking maybe 1 minute to describe and then 5 minutes in the breakout room, or
great, perfect. Yeah,
okay.
We can do that for sure.
So this is an exercise that Tzveta did with us, the group, the story creating group, and we really enjoyed it. So as you think, just like she started you off, as you think about this problem, either a challenge that you're facing or something that you're seeing with your clients, think about it using all your senses. That if this problem had a color, what color would it be? If it had a smell, what smell would it be? You know, if it had a texture, what kind of texture would it be? If it had a sound, what sort of sound would it be? Kind of think about it with all of these different senses. And also see if you can think about a possible, think about it as a metaphor. See if you can express the issue as a metaphor. And in the metaphor, see if you can think of a solution as well. You might think of helpers, things that help the situation, metaphorically staying within the metaphor. And also you might think of obstacles. So, and then now when Karen puts you into the breakout rooms, just share this little bit, what came to your mind.
So think of a problem and could you just say it one more time? Think of a problem.
Think of a problem, run it through your senses. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
How does it look? How does it feel? How does it sound, taste, and what's it like to touch?
Perfect.
And with this information, think of a metaphor that expresses these similar characteristics.
Okay. And describe it.
Yeah, and describe
okay. It. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So, and then switch roles. So we'll do it in groups of 2 and then switch, then someone else thinks of one and shares it. Yep. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tzveta.